Hey guys, today we'll be making sense of Palantir's numbers, their financials, to see what's going on with the stock, why is it plummeting, and whether or not we should be buying the stock at these prices. Unlike most YouTubers, I don't discuss a company's fundamentals on a daily basis for a month. That could go on for a year. No, but seriously, I think research should be done within yourselves without the noise of the others. Because again, it is your money to gain and it is your money to lose. This is Palantir's financials from Yahoo Finance. If you want to verify these numbers, feel free to do so. First, I'm going to explain to you what these numbers are and what they represent. This here is the current price, and this is the current market cap. Palantir is currently trading at 13.42 with market cap of 27.23 billion. Data here are in fiscal years. Everything in here are in billions, except for the margins and the yields and the EPS, of course. This is their revenues over the years 2018 through 2021 and their revenue growth in percentage year over year. If you haven't watched any of my videos yet, I deconstruct the revenues into three sections. One is the COGS, or cost of goods sold, or cost of revenues. They're all the same thing. Two is the OE, or operating expenses, which includes the SG&A, R&D, and sometimes it includes some unusual expenses. And lastly, three is the diluted net income. This is net income after taxes already. This is the shares outstanding and the rate of dilution over the years. Dilution is normal for new companies, especially for growing companies. So basically, Palantir diluted their shares by 27.64% from 1.588 billion shares to 2.027 billion shares and 13.11% since their IPO. This is their free cash flow. They made money in 2021. The numbers you see below these sections are their margins. Let me show you the relationship of the cells. So basically, everything is divided by the revenues. And if negative, I don't put anything. Our goal is to make sense of these numbers so we can determine what price we should buy Palantir for. What you see on the left side are my assumptions or approximations of how much these sections could eat up off of those revenues. This is based on their data and or from other companies under the same sectors. For COGS here, I have 20 to 35%, meaning years from now, I assume Palantir could be spending this much of their revenues for COGS. But again, it could go lower and it could go higher. But if we're to base from these numbers, here are my assumptions, 20 to 35%. Next is the OE, or the operating expenses. This is well above 100. And if it's above 100, we can't really make sense of this. And this is also why they have negative net income, because their revenues haven't met their expenses yet, or their expenses are higher than what they make. Normally, I'd ignore these kinds of stocks and let them just grow their revenues until we can finally make sense of their OEs. But what I did here is to compare OEs from different companies within the same sector, and Palantir was within the stocks among Microsoft, Oracle, and Adobe. They are profitable software companies, and I think it would only make sense to assume their OE margins with Palantir's. These are their OE margins. From these margins, I assume the same for Palantir of 30 to 50% OE margins. So, if we add the COGS and OE margins, we should have the remaining as their profit margins. If we took the taxes out and put some allowance on the remaining margins, I have an assumption of profit margins of 15 to 25%. Palantir could be having profit margin and or free cash flow margins of 15 to 25%. Again guys, if you haven't seen my videos, I do pay $1 or less for 1% of their profit margins or free cash flow margins. In other words, I pay 1 PE or less for 1% of their margins. If we assume the same thing, I could be paying $15 to $25 for Palantir. That is with the assumption of 1 EPS because price is PE multiplied by the EPS. Now at the current prices, it is a buy. But again, if you believe Palantir could be a $1 trillion company, I think you will see more share dilution until they become profitable. Or even when they're profitable, they do dilute shares. And with that share dilution, it will affect our assumption of 1 EPS. So you have to discount your risk and share dilution to that 1 EPS assumption. It could be any number, but obviously I can put what numbers to use into your brains. So it should be made within yourself, your risk appetite, and your desired gain in the future. But guys, this shouldn't matter if you think Palantir is going to be a $1 trillion company one day. A profitable $1 trillion company one day, who can buy back shares and probably pay some dividends. Now, there are people saying this is a $5 stock. Well, they could be right, but they could also be wrong. This is really a matter of assumptions, approximations, and perspective. But by $5, with our 15 to 25% margin or PE assumptions, they're assuming an EPS of 0.2 to 0.33, which makes sense if you ask me because their number of shares are pretty high. So an EPS of 1, even for me, is too high. So if you're a Palantir bull like Tom, Nash, and Ken, if you think Palantir is not going anywhere and will be a profitable company 5, 10, 20 years from now, I think buying Palantir below $15 would make you fortunes one day. But if you don't have that much patience or you think they're not gonna make it, you can always sell like Hattie Wood did. Again guys, I want you to remember this is not a bull case for Palantir. Well, obviously not bearish, but seriously, there's a lot of assumptions here and mistakes could have been made along the way. So as always, do your own research. And please subscribe.